All right, guys, today we're going to talk about just one of the few times we're ever going to do a non-controversial subject. We're going to talk about oil change intervals. Let's get into it. I don't know if you picked up on my sarcasm there. Get ready for a million comments on this one. Here's how we're going to do this video. We're going to real quickly talk about my 43 years of experience with oil services and kind of how they've changed over the years. We're going to talk about what the OE manufacturers recommend now and why I think they recommend what they do. And we're also going to talk about the problems that we see and we think are being caused by some of these, oil change intervals that are being recommended. And then we're going to talk about what we're going to change them to and what we hope to accomplish. So let's just get right into it. When I first got in this industry, and that was, like I say, a long time ago at this point, early 80s, there's going to be guys that are watching this that have been doing it, a lot longer than me. I'd love to see your comments and, what you used to run into with oil services. But back then, it was just always 3 years, 3 months, 3,000. I'm trying to say 3 months, 3 years, 36,000 miles. It was 3 months, 3,000 miles. That's what it always was. That's what everybody did. And it took a long time to get people away from that. And initially, it was a good interval to do because the engines were just not like they're built. They're not built like they are today. The oil probably wasn't as good as it is today. We had carburetors, which means that sitting there pumping the gas when you go to start the engine up, it's just dumping fuel into the cylinders, which is then getting down past the ring. Some of it's getting into the oil. Oil just did not last as long. Okay, so we got away from that, and I think that was a good thing. I think 3,000 was a very short interval for once the engines got a little modernized and got better and the oil got better. We just went right into 5,000 miles. We had no issue with it. A lot of places took a lot longer than us to go to 5,000 miles. Then things started to get a little crazy. We started to move into 7,500, 10,000 miles, 15,000 miles. Some vehicles, 25,000 mile oil services. I mean, these were recommended oil service intervals, 25,000 miles. I know that those cars held 9 quarts of oil and I get it. It's just, we're talking about crazy numbers. And it's like, why is this happening, And I didn't know. I just thought, well, manufacturers, must know what they're doing. But it kind of turned out where we're seeing a lot of these cars that had these extended intervals started having problems, started having engine problems, right? I mean, even Toyota back in the early 2000s started having engine problems. Just that just wasn't a common thing. And we started looking at it like, okay, we don't need to be doing these crazy long intervals. This is causing these engines, where we live, these cars last, just years and years and years and hundreds of thousands of miles, and they're not doing it. They're just having problems where it's getting to the point where the car's, it needs an engine and it's just not worth putting the engine in. It's got, miles on it that's just going to make it not worth putting an engine in, but it could have lasted longer, we feel like. Okay, so we adopted the 5,000 mile when it was synthetic blend. We got away from conventional motor oil, went to synthetic blend, 5,000 mile oil services, so 5 months, 5,000 miles. And then we went to a 7-month, 7,000 mile oil service for full synthetics. A little bit longer interval, oil's a little bit better, and we just felt like that was a good, value for our clients. It's what we're always looking for, and I hope that's what you guys are looking for, and hopefully that's why you're watching us, is like, we want all of us, all in this industry, I feel like, hopefully, want to give value to the clients. Recently, we've seen a lot of engine issues, and some of these are just inherently bad designs, right? The 3.6 Chrysler engine, I know I'm harping on it. They're in here all the time. We're putting one in right now. It's just there's some design issues with that, right? But a lot of engines are just burning oil, and I mean, it's a bad problem. They're burning a lot of oil. OE specs on a lot of vehicles. I've heard them all over the place. I've heard GM say 750 miles for a quart of oil, totally normal. Volkswagen, 750 miles for a quart of oil. That's normal consumption, right? I mean, the list goes on some of these, crazy amounts of oil consumption that are considered normal, right? And the problem with burning oil is not just the fact that we're burning the oil and sending it out, it's getting into the catalytic converter. I mean, that oil residue is getting into the catalytic converter, and it's going to cause issues with the catalytic converter over time. And then that's a massive expense too. Real quick, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you think the oil service intervals should be, what you're comfortable with, and tell me what you think we're going to. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button. We're getting close to 200K. We're going to have a big giveaway. Let's get back to the video. Why does an engine burn oil? It burns oil mainly, the main reason, I know there's little other ways that it can happen, but mainly it gets up through the rings, right? And it gets into the cylinder, into the combustion chamber, and it's burned. What we're seeing is carbon on the rings is causing this. And the rings are binding up on the pistons. The reason that we feel like this is happening and being more prevalent than it ever has been in the past is because ring tension is way low. You know, we used to have, I mean, for those of us that used to build engines back in the day, I mean, you put those rings on, and I mean, them bad boys were I mean, they were tight against the cylinder wall. You put a piston in a cylinder, I mean, you had to knock that thing down. I mean, that thing was scraping along the cylinder wall. Well, what do the manufacturers look at? What do they have to do? They've got to meet these crazy mileage standards, right? So the EPA says your mileage has got to be at whatever it is, right? And in order to accomplish these mileage standards, the manufacturers are doing some crazy stuff. And one of them is ring tension. They are really lessening that ring tension down. Well, if you lessen the ring tension with the pressure that they put out against the cylinder wall, it's going to be way easier for some carbon to build up inside of them and bind them up. And once they're bound up a little bit, they don't scrape against the cylinder wall as good. They don't wipe the cylinder wall down. Oil gets past them. They can't protect that. Gets into there and it burns it. So the addition or the amplification, I'll call it, of that is now we lessen the ring tension, and then we make the oil change interval will be crazy long. So we're letting the oil break down, which is causing even the problem to even be worse, right? So we can't fix the ring tension issue. That's unfixable. It is what it is. But we can at least lessen the oil change interval down a little bit where it will hopefully last longer before you have an issue with the rings. Now, there are some good solutions out there that we're practicing with, and you know, we're trying to I say practice with, we are experimenting with, thank you, that we're trying to see if is this gonna work, right? So Automotive Test Solutions has got a great engine oil cleaner that will go in and break up this carbon. We've had luck with that with oil consumption, you know, get rid of oil consumption. BG's got one that we've had luck with getting rid of oil consumption. So clearly what those things are doing is going in and cleaning up the carbon on these rings. So this is what has led me to believe that this is a carbon issue and not just the design of the engine is this and it's just always going to burn oil from day one. It's not burning oil from day one. It's taken some time, and I think we can help eliminate this, widen this stuff out to where we can at least get it under control so people can have a good vehicle for a lot longer. Why are the OE manufacturers widening out these oil services? What is in it for them? Right? So I mean, you always have to look at this from a standpoint of what's in it for that OE manufacturer. Well, one has always been the cost of the vehicle ownership. So it used to be back in the day, you used to have all the magazines, you know, I can't remember the names of the magazines, but they had the little black boxes in there. It's like cost of ownership for the first 100,000 miles, right? And it would calculate in things like oil services, any fluid service, transmission fluid, timing belt replacements, things like that. And the manufacturers started looking at that because people started making purchase decisions based on, well, this thing's going to cost me X number of dollars to maintain over 100,000 miles, right? And everybody thinks that 100,000 miles is worn out. I mean, today 100,000 miles is nothing really if it's maintained properly. So, but the OE manufacturer started, I think, pushing out those intervals, right? Getting rid of some things. This is what I always thought anyway, because of that cost of ownership calculation. Recently, and I don't know that this is 100% true, I'm just telling you what I heard. Recently, I heard that the OE manufacturers, we were talking about transmission services, we did a video on that recently, and I was talking to some people in the industry about transmission services, and what they were telling me was the OE manufacturers actually get carbon credits if they don't do fluid services or if they do them less often. So like transmission fluid never gets done. It's never recommended. So if it's never recommended, I know some manufacturers, we were told in the comments of that other video that some do recommend it, but some don't, and they get carbon credits for that. So, and my understanding is, okay, they get the carbon credit, and it's like, okay, well, you know, they can use those to offset things that they can't accomplish. So maybe they can't accomplish fuel mileage on some model or something, and they can take these carbon credits and go, okay, well, you know, I can't do that, but here's this, right? And it's got to play a part in the oil service interval too. It's like, oh, well, we would recommend it every 5,000 miles, but now we're doing it every 10. So they probably do a calculation to go, well, there's maybe you can get a carbon credit for that, right? Again, just telling you what I heard. You guys leave a comment down there. Tell me if you know it's true or not true or what you've heard, okay? But if that's true, that can play a massive part in this deal. I mean, that can explain a lot with the transmission fluid. Like, if they're getting a credit for saying don't do it, and they go, well, the transmission will last 100,000 miles without doing the service on it, right? The engine will last 100,000 miles with doing the oil services every 10,000 miles or 15,000 miles or whatever number they come up with, and then we can get this credit. Well, vehicle owners will think it's worth it because, it's a good vehicle, made it to 100,000 miles, and we'll get this credit. Are they really looking for a vehicle to get 200 or 300,000 miles on it? Where we live, yes, we are, but they're not. I don't think they are, So that could play a huge part in why this is happening. So again, just what I heard. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to have to change them, right? Because we've just seen too many issues with these engines. It's costing our clients massive amounts of money. They're having to get rid of vehicles that are perfectly viable vehicles. They're clean, right? The AC works in them. The car overall is in good shape, needs a motor in it. And the motors are stupid expensive. I mean, it's nothing for an engine replacement to be $13,000, $14,000, $15,000, right? I mean, low end, $7,000, $8,000. So, it's just, we've got to make a pivot because we don't want our clients to have a vehicle that we think is a viable vehicle in every aspect, other than the engine's bad, which is a massive one, obviously. And they've got to go out and spend $40,000 or $50,000 or $60,000 to replace that vehicle. When if possibly we changed the oil a little more often in it, we did a engine oil cleaning flush, or however you want to, whatever product you're going to use. We got the rings where they're, not binding up as often, or we're keeping that at bay, and we can make an engine not burn oil, and we can make an engine last. Because what ends up happening is these things burn oil, they start consuming it at a pretty good rate. People just don't check their oil. I mean, it's just something that doesn't happen. You've got these big oil service intervals that are 10,000 miles. Well, okay, it used to be 3 months, 3,000 miles, 5 months, 5,000 miles. What is it, 10,000 miles? 10 months, 10,000 miles. It's almost a year, and nobody's checking their oil. Yeah, some cars have got a low oil indicator, right? But, if people are hopefully paying attention to that. But if they don't check their oil, next thing you know, the engine blows up because it's burnt oil. Right? If it's burning a quart of oil every 750 miles, and you're saying that it's a 7,500 mile, let's think about this. If it's normal for an engine to burn oil, a quart of oil every 750 miles, and you've got a 10,000 mile service interval, which is crazy. I mean, everybody's doing that. Toyota's doing that. Honda's got condition-based service, but Toyota's doing that. BMW is doing that. Chevrolet I saw was doing that. There's a ton of them that are doing that. That means you're using a case of oil in between oil change intervals. That's crazy, right? Here's the other aspect of this. We're throwing turbos on every car there is. I mean, we're putting smaller engines in and we're turbocharging them to get the power to somewhat normal. Why are we doing that? Because a smaller engine, better gas mileage. But we're putting turbos on it, and the turbo is those things get hot. And that oil gets in that turbo and just burns up to pieces. It's why you see a lot of these little race cars with turbos on them. You'll see these guys pull up, and they'll get out and walk away, and the engine's still running. And it'll run on its own and it's on a timer. It'll shut off on its own after a while. It's running to cool that oil down. Or they'll have an electric oil pump on it that just constantly runs after the engine shuts off for a little while to cool that oil down, to keep that oil running through that turbo, to cool it down, the oil down, so it doesn't just sit there and boil inside the turbo. I mean, these are all things that we got to think about when we're recommending services. What are we going to? At Royalty Auto Service, we are going to 5,000 mile oil service intervals. We don't really care about time that much anymore. I think the mile, at least for our clients, the mileage is going to be the most important thing. We do have conversations with our clients about their driving habits. If we've got somebody that's got some really severe driving habits, we're going to adjust that a little bit based on maybe time or mileage or whatever. So, but mostly, just generally, normal driving habits, 5,000 miles. It doesn't matter what kind of oil we put in it. We're also going to start recommending doing that flush at least once, I would say probably every 30,000 miles. And we're going to monitor that too and see if we can't keep these oil consumption issues at bay, right? And then we might have to change this down the road. I don't know. I literally, and I haven't done an oil service and I can't tell you how long. We had a vehicle in here that it was a Honda with an oil consumption issue, which we all know those were really common. We don't know if the flush is going to fix it. But I actually did our first 5,000 mile full synthetic oil service. So, but I just, again, we always are trying to look out for our clients. And sometimes that might mean we need to do something a little more often, like transmission services that are never called for. We believe in them because we believe that at the end of the day, it's a better value for our client because the vehicle is going to last longer. It's going to be different all across this country. Some shops that are in the, in the salt belt up there, that these cars are going to rust away. Maybe you do things a little differently, right? I certainly would. If it's a vehicle that's just not going to last, very long, we got to change what we recommend. But if you live in an area like we do, where these cars can last a long, long time, we got to start looking out for our clients, and then we have to educate them. So for all you drivers out there that aren't techs or working in shops, you're just watching this because you like, I don't know, listening to car stuff. Don't think that the shop's trying to oversell you. We're really looking out for you. We want that car to last a long time. All right, guys, if you like this content, you know what to do. Hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification, leave a comment down below, share this with your friends. I don't know what I'm saying right now. Sherman's laughing behind me. Appreciate you watching. See you in the next one. What did you start laughing? What did I say?
I just wanted to mess with you.